And we are live. Welcome to Space Weather at 3:33. Just drinking some coffee, complete with cayenne pepper, cocoa powder, and a little bit of coconut oil. Looking at the sun at 171 angstroms. Just today's activity here, we see a C-class solar flare, which appears to have hurled a coronal mass ejection into space. Not sure if it's Earth-facing yet. We'll be looking at it. Anyway, there's that. Here's the last 48 hours and 304 angstroms. And there's that solar flare. Let's look at the real-time solar wind. All right, so solar wind density is at 4.73 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed, 419 kilometers per second. Solar wind density. And let me just go to this for a moment. All right, let's go to spaceweather.com to look at the solar flux. It has dropped down to 71. It had been 73. Now it's back down to 71. All right. There's what we were just looking at. Sunspot 2734. Now, let's check and see what we can see on the LASCO C2. See if we see any sort of a halo coming out. That one might be an Earth-facing solar flare, folks. Let that play through again. There's the one going the opposite way. And it may be too early to tell yet, but that's something to keep an eye on today. And let's go to spaceweathernews.com. And there's that X-ray flare. Blow that up full screen for you. So you see it was just in the lower C-class portion of the range there. And it just happened. So, by the way, if anybody signed up for Space Weather Alerts, you would have gotten an alert about this. We'll show you how to do that in a moment. And it looks like the magnetometer is back. How about that? So that's a good thing. Now, did the field really do this? I doubt it. But yeah, so that's thank you for fixing the GOES 14 and 15. And what else do we have here? KP index is down to 1. Electron flux is looking fairly smooth. Not any big perturbations associated with that X-ray flare. And charging hazards are starting to diminish. We see a few south of the equator there. And the F2 layer is looking almost the same as it did yesterday. Fairly normal. A little bit discharged in that South Atlantic anomaly region there. No surprise there. And next we'll look at the total electron content. Anybody concerned about things like GPS errors? This should give you some idea. As we did have some GPS errors in eastern Pennsylvania just the day before yesterday. Next, we've got the geospace magnetosphere movies here. I'll show you the velocity and the density and the pressure. Just get those to load here. And there's the velocity. Make that as big as possible. Oh, and speaking of being as big as possible, I apologize. I forgot to change my screen resolution. So hopefully this will crop correctly and it won't give you something weird looking. Let's see what it does. And did it give you a cropped screen? Perfect. All right, good. Sorry about that. By the way, we made a movie yesterday about David Wallace Wells on the Joe Rogan Experience. Please go watch the powerful JRE channel. Guy talking about climate change, reciting about 90% phony facts that are based on complete nonsense, non-science, junk science, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, there's the magnetosphere velocity. Here's the density. Son of a bitch. Are we still live, folks? I can't see it. Okay, it just failed on my end. That's good. Ah, okay. What happened there? There's little technical difficulties. All right. All right, we are back. Huh. There's the density. I was about to have to start over. All right, there's the density. Nothing too extravagant there about what you'd expect to be seeing. And there's the pressure. We show this every day regardless of whether there's anything apparently going on. We may have to refer to it later. Let's look at the ground perturbations. First over the poles. And then over the rest of the globe. There's the polar view. I got to take this off of full screen. It's rotting my brain. All right. And here's the globe view. Shrink that down a tiny bit. There's that. We'll let that play through again. Welcome to Earth. There are 3 poles. Deal with it. All right. And we'll look at the gong too. It should show some activity based on that solar flare. It is 1 hour and 39 minutes old. Let's look at the last frame here. All right, nothing too extravagant going on there. I figured you'd be able to see it on the, you'd be able to see that solar flare, but apparently not. And let's go back and look at some earthquakes here. Geez, we have one in South Africa. That's a rare one. Well, let's start there. Going back about 24 hours here. A 5.1 in Alaska. A 4.8 in Tonga. Activity continuing by New Zealand too, by the way. And let's see, Japan with a 4.8. Oh, that map is so ugly. All right, that's good enough. There's a 4.9 at New Zealand. Seem to be getting a bit of a swarm there. Speaking of swarms, let me draw the earthquake watch zone. If you are in these regions, please have an earthquake plan. As the magnitude 6 and 7 drought continues. If you're in those areas, expect a magnitude 6 or 7 earthquake. All right, moving on. And what else do we have? There's that other New Zealand quake. There's a 5.7 in Chile, right in the center of the watch zone for South America. There's that 5.7 in New Zealand region, just north of New Zealand. A 4.7 in Alaska. 4.4 in China. 4.9 in the Kuril Islands. A lot of activity going on in that region too, by the way. I mean, we got volcanoes up here. We got all kinds of earthquakes in this whole area. .8 in Alaska, 4.6 in Indonesia, 4.3 in Guatemala, right at the north portion of the South American watch zone, 5.4 in Taiwan. Let us know if you felt that one, David Devine. 4.4 in Russia, 5.2 in Indonesia, so we got a bit of an uptick here. And that's your earthquakes. Let's look at volcanoes. At volcanodiscovery.com. Today's list includes Abico producing a 9,000-foot ash plume, Mount Mayon, 9,000-foot ash plume there also in the Philippines, Karangatang with a 9,000-foot ash plume. Seems to be a pattern developing. Everybody's producing a 9,000-foot ash plume. The 6,000-foot ash plume at Tocono, Popocatépetl, not observed. Fuego emissions have dissipated, and Sabancaya with the volcano star of the day with a 24,000-foot ash plume. That's a big one. All right. What do we have here? Let's play a clip from yesterday's video. this fellow David Wallace Wells, who is wrong at least 90% of the time, spouting a bunch of facts about climate change without understanding the least bit of the physics. Literally doesn't know any of the physics, is just going to spout all kinds of statistics that are based on nonsense. Garbage in, garbage out. I used to write code. Garbage in, garbage out. You write garbage code, you get garbage results. And this guy believes garbage science, and he's convincing hundreds of thousands of other people to also on Powerful JRE. Check it out. Anybody ever hear of David Wallace Wells? Apparently 517,000 people on the Joe Rogan Experience have. This guy's a proper global warming alarmist. And I would love to hear somebody, especially you, Tony Heller, break down this guy's data points. So if you're familiar with Tony Heller, please go to his page. He's listed in our officially endorsed channels at youtube.com/smAsho. Go to Tony Heller, watch his videos about climate change, and then message him and ask him to break down this entire thing. He's got 2 hours of material here. He could probably make about a 5-hour video debunking literally almost every quote fact and quote presented on this horrific episode of Powerful JRE. By the way, I do watch Joe Rogan. I disagree with probably about 60% of the stuff that he says, but it's still pretty educational. So anyway, because they're full of bollocks. Let's play a clip.
Attending to the subway lines in those neighborhoods. And even a few years after that, they'll start saying explicitly to the people who live there, you might be able to continue living in these homes for a couple of decades.
That's right. He believes New York, Brooklyn, Queens are going to be underwater in a couple years because of climate change. He thinks the Al Gore movie, An Inconvenient Truth, was not extreme enough. Let's let him continue to make a fool of himself.
But you're not going to be able to leave them to your kids. Whoa. This is in New York City. It's like the richest country, the richest city in the world. And yeah, huge parts of southern Brooklyn and Queens are going to be underwater. So for the people,
you heard it here. Please. So anyway, not sure if he believes it or not, but yeah, he's gonna spout quite a bit of nonsense. David Wallace Wells knows nothing about science. He's just a journalist spouting a bunch of statistics that he doesn't understand. Go off the meter. If you watch it, like I said, here. And try not to let your blood pressure go off the meter. Try not to let your blood pressure go off the meter. Quoting myself. Let's go a little farther from home here to Zooniverse.org. One of the largest citizen science projects in the world, the Galaxy Zoo. Let's classify a galaxy. Here's one. I think it's got features. Is it an edge-on disk? Well, certainly not. Is there a bar? I'm going to say there is a bar, but it's weak because this thing is extremely perturbed. The hell, come on. All right. Is there a spiral arm pattern? Well, there is not. Is there a bulge? Well, there is, and it's totally off center. We're going to say moderate. Is it merging or disturbed? We're going to have to say merging because there's 2 bulges and there's all kinds of other features there. We're going to say lens or arc, irregular, dust lane, overlapping, and something else. So that was an interesting one. Head to Zooniverse.org. Classify this galaxy here, which is even weirder. Also, if you've got social media accounts and you'd like one that doesn't spy on you or censor you, head to Minds.com. Join us at Minds.com/smAsho. You will occasionally see material that we don't put up on these videos. It also allows us to put up stuff that you can't see on Facebook. because it's better at posting things like GIF animations, and we love GIF animations. Let me show you some extra stuff here. Now look at this solar flare at 94 angstroms. Give us the closest possible view we can get. Anyway, there's that flare. I did want to also cover a couple of articles here. Let me just navigate to those. All right. First of all, at phys.org, phys.org is practically advertising for our channel here because they just put this up 11 hours ago, and we covered this 2 days ago. Yes. The SDO catches lunar freeze frame. Good times. Anyway, we covered it 2 days ago. Phys.org covered it 11 hours ago. Cheers. Let's see what else we've got here. I would also recommend you go to phys.org and look at how much nonsense they have here, because practically every article in the Earth section is about global warming. I mean, seriously, it's raining on Greenland ice in the winter. Are you scared? Are you scared? Sea ice plays pacemaker role in abrupt climate change. Well, that's probably correct, as water vapor is an actual greenhouse gas, unlike carbon dioxide. So yeah, it's gonna slip a blurb about global warming in every single freaking article that it puts up. Next, let's go to Science Alert, as they've got an article about the calculation of the mass of the Milky Way. We talk about this occasionally here, how we don't understand galactic motions, much less the orbits in our own solar system. They're not only based on things like inertia and gravity, folks. They're based on things like magnetic fields also, and electrical current flow. So now, since those are essentially the same thing, it's hard to say which, but yeah. So anyway, great article on sciencealert.com about calculation of the mass of the galaxy. We used to think it was more massive than Andromeda. Now we're thinking it might be less massive than Andromeda. So, yep. Is it a step in the right direction? I don't really know. But I can definitely say this. Nonsense alert, nonsense alert. The mass of the Milky Way can't be guessed on what we see because dark matter is playing a role. That non-existent substance known as dark matter is playing a role. And we can't detect dark matter directly. By the way, this is terrible journalism. You don't start a sentence with the word and or the word but. Those are conjunctions, dudes. Anyway, we know something is out there, a magnetic field, because the orbital velocity of the outer region of the galaxy. Yes. Magnetic fields and electric current. Anyway, we'll leave links after the stream is complete. And there's one other article, because we don't like self-driving vehicles. We think that they're stupid. If Google and Apple can barely write code for you to operate your smartphone, how are they going to make safe software to operate cars? I mean, sure, there's mechanical fail-safes, but anyway, it turns out self-driving cars are racist. They may miss darker-skinned faces. So yeah, how about some racist cars, folks? Now, the fact that they're using optical cameras for this just shows how stupid they are and what a lack of concern they have for human life or life in general, as if you used FLIR cameras, forward-looking infrared radars, like you see in targeting systems for aircraft, as you see in anyway, FLIR, FLIR, forward-looking infrared radar. That's what these things need, because forward-looking infrared radar sees heat, and it has nothing to do with optical cameras. So here's another example of how this technology is dumb, not designed correctly, and will continue to fail until it is designed correctly. Anyway, let's get one more view here of the sun before we close things out. How about, what haven't we seen? Let's go to the magnetogram, actually. That'll show us the exact how that sunspot is evolving. And it looked like it was breaking down yesterday. It was losing some complexity. And I believe it is still breaking down. Looking at that trailing field there, the North Pole associated negative green portion, negative polarity green and blue portion there. Still no umbra associated with that portion. Let me show you what it's doing on the intensity gram, where you'll be able to actually see the umbra. None associated with that rear portion. I'm surprised it already hasn't been classified as an alpha class. Yeah, there's no umbra associated with the trailing portion, so that should be an alpha class sunspot. And throughout the day, keep an eye on the LASCO C2, because that's going to show you whether or not that coronal mass ejection is headed toward Earth. Keep in mind it is a C-class flare, and the estimations for the speed of the plasma that was ejected is about 600 kilometers per second. So it doesn't look super crazy. But anyway, that's the information. And yeah. Oh, one other thing. Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. There it is. This is where you can actually see the X-ray flares, by the way, folks. I meant to look at this earlier. I just completely forgot. So there's the X-ray imager. You'll see that flare pop off. Also, something you may want to note here is that there also was a prominence up here at the same time. So we are seeing some crown prominences. Right before the flare, you'll see a prominence up there. So that's an interesting little fact there. And by the way, I found out about this flare via an email alert this morning. So I wasn't actually looking for it. I mean, not very surprising considering there's a sunspot, but if you'd like to sign up for email alerts, just head up here on the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. Actually, all of these SWPC Space Weather Prediction Center sites have this same frame up here. You just click subscribe, and you see they've been getting a lot of subscriptions. So you just click subscribe and you put in what alerts you want. They have about 51 alerts. I'm going to have to whittle down some of mine because I have too many. So yeah, check it out. Close things out with a 193 angstroms view here. See if there's any coronal holes on the way. Anything else to increase earthquake risk and so on. Will it go full screen? I don't think it'll go full screen. Let's see. Nope. Anyway, there's that flare in 193 angstroms. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Tried to shorten this one a little bit. So we'll be doing it all again tomorrow, if not later today. Thanks, subscribers, donors. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share on your social media. help us to get a little bit more following here as we're making hundreds of videos and we're increasing the production quality. So thanks again. Remember, on your way looking at C-class solar flares and determining if they've sent ejecta toward the Earth, don't drink. And if you drink, look at the solar flares and determine if they've sent ejecta toward the Earth. Just don't drive.